Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing all right. Thanks for sitting in on this seminar this morning on failure to post and penalty scores, and plus we'll have plenty of time for an open and question and answer period. Got to keep my eye on the waiting room here. Um, for those that don't know me, I'm Jim Douglas, Director of Handicapping here at the Carolinas Golf Association. I'm in my fifth year at the CGA. Before that, worked for almost 28 years for a company that did handicapping and tournament software called GolfNet that some of you may remember. We were the gin and golf genius of the 90s and 2000s before then the CGA moved over to where they are now back in 2013. The rest of our department here, Kevin Harris is our director of member services. We used to be called the Gin Department. That kind of was a odd name, so we've rebranded ourselves as the Member Services Department. For those that know Doug Hardesty, he's retired. We miss him, but we wish him well. We have a new team member here in Member Services, Anna Catherine Herring, who's been a great fit for our team. Um, so without any further ado, let's jump into failure to post scores and penalty scores, which um, in my couple of years up here, director of handicapping seems like one of the more difficult tasks handicap committees have to face, just probably from a member pushback point of view. So I'm going to speak to this of kind of from the technical rules of handicapping side, uh, more so than how to handle things on the committee side, but maybe we can get a little discussion on that if need be. So yeah, one of the more challenging responsibilities of oh, by the way, I will email everyone the slides after the conclusion. I'll email them later this morning to everybody online that's on here. And like I said, we'll get this recorded and up there as well for sharing. You can use the chat for questions, or we've got a small enough crowd, so feel free to unmute yourself anytime. But yeah, one of the more challenging responsibilities of a handicap committee is making sure golfers post their scores. Of course, strongly encouraged for a player to post a score on the same day of play. We had a stat the other day in one of our handicapping gin meetings. Say it was like 64% of scores are posted on the day of play, and it's a number I thought was just a little far too low for what we should be doing. Should be much higher. But I digress. The handicap committee is authorized to post a penalty score to a player's record when a player fails to post an acceptable score from an authorized format of play in a timely manner. This is all covered in Rule 7.1B in your rules of handicapping. So let's kind of jump right into that and go through what Rule 7.1B talks about. Posting a missing score or a penalty score. So first, we really need to know, handicap committee really needs to know the reason for that a golfer didn't submit the score. There could be a reason where it was it was okay that the golfer didn't post a score. The handicap committee has the authority to determine whether that player's reasons for not submitting the score was justified and then take appropriate action. So was it a valid reason? Not a valid reason. What are some reasons why a golfer should be okay to have not posted a score? Handicap may consider factors such as unforeseen events, sudden injury, illness, or emergency, which adversely affected the ability of the player over the remaining holes of the event after the event occurred. I recall playing around with a friend, and he'd gotten ill from something he ate that morning. We were playing pretty early in the morning, and he was just not the same on that back nine. And if he had, if he had chosen not to post that score, I'd have probably been okay with that as a handicap committee. He wasn't playing that well, and just I'm sure the stomach bug was distracting him, so to speak. When the handicap committee determines that a player's reason for failing to submit their score was justified, the score should not be posted for handicap purposes. So there may be reasons where golfer has a good reason that they didn't post a score. Probably not common that way, but never know. But there are lots of reasons that should not be considered justified to have not posted your score. Golfer saying, I forgot. That's kind of that's not really an excuse anymore these days. Circumstances preventing the timely submission of a score, for example, access to the clubhouse or a power outage. Every so many scores, most people post scores by the app these days. That's really the best way to go. So maybe a rare case where something like this might be a factor, but that's probably not going to be a justifiable reason for not posting the score. When one or more holes have not been played for a valid reason. So golfer may say, hey, I didn't play the last 4 holes for whatever reason. That's not a reason to not post a score. We know there's rules in place in the rules of handicapping to account for unplayed holes if you don't finish an 18-hole round. And the more of the bigger issues here, if you preventing a low score from causing a handicap index to decrease, and the opposite, preventing a high score from causing a handicap index to increase. I think we more often see golfers not wanting to post a low score to have their handicap index lower, but there are cases where a golfer doesn't want to have their handicap index go up. And those should be looked at as well. All right, so what do we do? The Golf Handicap Committee has determined that the player's reason for failing to submit their score was not justified, and the Handicap Committee can act. If they were able to discover the actual score, if they know what that is, for example, they've retrieved the scorecard from that event or from that player for somebody in that group, and then you can post that actual score. You can post that actual score as you have it. If the round wasn't completed for a valid reason and the score meets all the other provisions set out in the rules of handicapping, we can post that score. We use that expected score for the unplayed holes, for holes or hole or holes not played. So if they didn't play the last 4 holes, we have their scorecard, and you know the 14 holes that they played. We can post that hole by hole, get that score posted. Kind of the same things. If the handicap committee concludes that the player failed to submit the score for the purpose of gaining an unfair advantage, they didn't post that low score to avoid having their handicap index go down, you can consider applying an additional penalty score appropriate for that circumstances. That's up to the handicap committee. There's lots of failure to post, lots of things we're going to see that really handicap committee dependent. It's really a wide range of things you can do to enforce this, control this at your club. So again, if the player's actual score, okay, so that was when the score, we know what the score is. We know what the golfer shot. However, that's possible. We know what the golfer shot. But if we don't know what the golfer shot, the actual score is not discoverable. Well, then we can post a penalty score here as well. So if the player's actual score is later on discovered, somebody turns in the scorecard, whatever, the actual score should be posted to the player's scoring record. The handicap committee has the discretion to leave the penalty score on the player's scoring record or to remove it. Depends on the circumstances. So golfer doesn't post a score, handicap committee posts a penalty score. Later on, scorecard's found or the player says, oh, I shot this. The committee can post that score. Depending on what the circumstances was, they have the option to leave that penalty score that was posted in place or take it off. Really depends. Again, there's lots of things that are really up to the handicap committee and what they feel is best in that situation. We'll talk about actually the technical side of posting penalty scores in a little bit. All right, so we're posting a penalty score. Excuse me, what are we going to post? The value of any penalty score applied to a player's scoring record should be appropriate for the circumstances and or the player intent. What were they trying to do? So for example, player was determined to have acted for the purpose of lowering their handicap index. They didn't want to post that low score. The penalty score should be equal to the, I'm sorry, got that backwards. If the player determined to have acted for the purpose of lowering their handicap index, so they didn't want to post a high score, the penalty score should be equal to the highest score differential in their last 19. It says 19 just because because that penalty score is going to be the 20th score. And so in case that highest score differential was number 20, it's going to fall off. But actually, we'll see that we don't have to worry about that if you want to let the GIN system figure it out for you. But we'll look at that in a minute. Here's the earlier one. If the player is determined to have acted for the purpose of raising their handicap index, they didn't post that low score that they shot. The penalty score should be equal to the lowest score differential in their last 19 scores. And then finally, there is another option. If the player has not submitted a score for any other reason, whatever that may be, they just plain forgot or didn't feel like it, and that score is not discoverable, the penalty score should be equal to their course handicap plus the course rating of the tees played rounded to the nearest hole number. So essentially, they played to their handicap index. You can take their course handicap and just post kind of an average score or one of the scores kind of equal to one of their, the middle score and their best 8 kind of thing. All right, some other notes about failure to post scores. So penalty scores, they're going to be easily identified in the system with a score type of P. You'll see a P next to the score. Using the date that the score was posted and can be so the date the score was posted. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the date that they didn't play, but the date the score was posted is fine. Can be applied to the handicap committee through the handicap software. Kind of as mentioned before, if the handicap committee is aware of the score information, it may post the actual score with the type of P. So when you're posting that actual score, you can post it with a P just to kind of indicate, hey, the handicap committee posted this, the golfer didn't post this, the handicap committee posted this. And then there's another reminder, the handicap committee has the discretion to post the actual score in addition to the penalty score. Again, depending on that player's intent of what they were trying to do. Just a note, if the player had not posted a 9-hole score or not posted a whole score where they played 10 to 17 holes, simply just post an 18-hole penalty score. You don't need to post a 9-hole penalty score, just post an 18-hole penalty score. It's like all three lead to the same 18-hole score differential anyway. We're just think of it as posting an 18-hole penalty score. Simplifies things greatly there. You don't have to worry about that at all. All right, so we're in the GIN software, and we want to post a penalty score. So Mr. Jim here didn't post a score that he played. He shot a low score the other day. Didn't want his handicap to go down, so he didn't bother posting it. All right, so we'll access his record in the GIN software. And first thing we'll do is click on the Post a Score tab in that golfer's record. Simple enough. This software, that'll default the score to hole by hole, but we're going to change it down to total score. And then that gives these options. The penalty score option wasn't there with hole by hole, but once you click total score, the penalty option appears here. And so we're going to choose, we'll change it from home over to penalty score. We can adjust our date of play here as well as needed. But we're probably going to use, since we're posting a penalty score, we'll just use today's date. And then we have a couple other options now that we've chosen penalty score. You can choose to do a manual method where you enter in the score and choose the course and tee and get a score that way. You would do that if in the case of that third example where the golfer wasn't trying to raise their handicap, wasn't trying to lower their handicap, and they were just kind of played an average round and didn't post. You can just post an average score for them using the manual option. But I think a lot of times we're going to want to choose the auto option. And that opens up this option for penalty type. So if we wanted to post a high score differential, golfer was trying to avoid having their handicap go up, we would choose high. More often the case, golfer was not posting a low score to have that handicap index go down. I'm going to choose the low tab, and it automatically does it for you once we hit post score. Pretty handy feature here for posting penalty scores for golfers. All right, so do we have to let the player know? We know we've talked about in the past handicap reviews if you want to make a modification to a golfer's handicap index, keeping the player notified, having them appeal the modification. But that's not the case with penalty scores. No prior notification of a penalty score is required in the rules of handicapping, but it is recommended to notify the player of the consequences for failing to post acceptable scores. Um, the rules of handicapping still use the word letter. I don't know how many handwritten or typed out letters people, clubs send anymore, but certainly can be done. But I think more often we're using email. In any case, here's an example of just a brief example of a letter that you would send to a golfer or an email that you would send to a golfer who hasn't posted where you've posted a penalty score. So, dear Mr. No Post, the handicap committee has determined a penalty score should be assigned to you for the following reason, and you can enter in the proper reason: failure to post your score, failure to post your score for purpose of gaining an unfair advantage, posting an incorrect score. There's another one we should have mentioned a little more. Posting an incorrect score. If you posted, golfer shoots a 75 and posts an 85, those can be treated in the same manner as failure to post, is posting an incorrect score. It doesn't get written about as clearly in the rules of handicapping as I'd like to see, but it really falls into the same category of posting of posting a failure to post. So cases like this, I'm going to go off you can remove that incorrectly posted score, post the proper score, post the penalty score, whatever you feel is correct. But yeah, this is kind of falls in the same way, and probably certainly more of a indication that the golfer is trying to gain an unfair advantage. And if there's another reason that you wanted to add here, so you can enter in whatever reason you want into the letter. And then finally, you can add things like, after having issued you several warnings or based on our club's policies and procedures, the handicap committee will issue this penalty score to your scoring record on today, or we issued it today. Your handicap index will be updated appropriately the following day. Penalty score will be identified in your scoring record with the letter P as the score type. But just a simple letter, email would suffice to let the golfer know. All right, golfers who continue to fail to post. What can they do? What tools are available to the handicap committee? So for a player who repeatedly fails to submit acceptable scores, the handicap committee or the authorized association should consider either withdrawing your handicap index, kind of the severe step there, or taking other disciplinary action. Those other disciplinary actions could include prohibiting a player from entering club competitions for a defined period of time, 3 months, 4 months. Maybe a full review of a golfer's handicap, a full handicap review of the golfer's handicap index would be warranted. And any modification, you can dig into his handicap, dig into his scoring record, his or her scoring record, see if a modification's necessary. Requiring that player to return scorecards for a defined period of time. I have a club that if they've not posted scores and so for after they get 2 or 3 or 4, I forget what it was, and maybe I think it was 3 failure to post. They're playing handicap adjustments in club events they would be adjusted for their events for the remainder of the year, that kind of thing. I think I have one club that does we'll show here in a minute. I'm going to circle back to some policies that clubs do. How do we know if a golfer hasn't posted a score? You can take your daily tee sheet, compare that with a scores posted report in GIN. That's kind of the simple way to do it. Everybody in the tee sheet post their score? I do have one club, one of our larger membership clubs. They'll, I think they run this report maybe once a month. They'll they'll total up the number of rounds that are played on their tee sheet, and then have a total number of rounds played from the GIN software, compare those. And if golfers fall below a certain threshold, I forget what their number was, maybe 90%, say golfers posting less than 90% of their scores are golfers we should look at and find out what's going on there. Golfers above 90%, maybe just a little bit of wiggle room in there for practice rounds and that kind of thing. A lot of tee sheet software these days integrates with the GIN software, and so we don't have to do this manually. They can do it for you. They can calculate some things and determine who hasn't posted scores. And there are some other third-party software that connects to tee sheets and the GIN software and can give you some reports and some data to work with. If you didn't have any software, daily doing a review every day, that would get taxing. That would wear anybody out. But clubs can do random reviews. Okay, say this week we're going to review weekend rounds. We're going to check the tee sheet and scores posted. The next week we're going to review Tuesday and Thursday rounds. Next week, Wednesday and Friday, etc. Random checks. Nice way to do that. Finally, periodically require golfers to turn in scorecards at the end of the round. Clubs and handicap committees can't require scorecards to be turned in every round all the time, but periodically, hey, for this next 2 weeks, please turn in your scorecards at the end of the round for verification. Club policy ideas. So really, if the handicap committee, and they should have policies and procedures in place so that penalty scores are applied consistently. If you've got a nice policy, it makes it less of a challenge to keep the golfer, to have the golfers know what the consequences are. Hey, this is the club policy, post your scores, or this, or this. So for example, club could choose to adopt these following policies. So kind of talking with mentioned software and integrations. I think there's some software out there that sends reminders at the end of the day for anybody who's on the tee sheet. Hey, make sure you post your score. Just a little reminder that gets sent out at the end of the day. And then there might be a process in this software to send a reminder to golfers who haven't posted their score, FTP, failure to post. If the system says, hey, they haven't posted in 2 days, send them a reminder note. Hey, post your score. Software can also send peer review emails. So it can send an email to the playing partners. It'll send an email to everybody in that group and say, Fred, Bob, Joe, and Ralph, here's your score. You are all played together. These 3 have posted their score. 1 guy hasn't posted their score. Please make sure your playing partners have posted your score. And when any of these kind of emails have the option to contact the handicap committee backwards, hey, I can explain why I didn't post that score, and for not posting and reminders and an actual failure to the post notifications. Christina's quick question of what software integration tools that work best. I wish I had a better answer for you. I do know a lot of people, some clubs use that Cap Patrol program, which I think has some integration that handles and helps with this. But I really don't know of any others, but usually it's within the tee sheet software. So check with that at your club if that's something that you're looking at. But I wish I had a better answer for you. So maybe I'll see what I can find out. Thank you. All right. As mentioned, handicap committee should have policies and procedures in place so that penalty scores are applied consistently. So here's a very simple example of a penalty score club phase policy, and this is right out of the rules of handicapping. First failure to post is a written warning. Second failure to post, penalty score is issued for the scores not posted. Third failure to post, further disciplinary action. Again, just kind of an oversimplified policy idea for failure to post, but it gives you the outline and idea of what you can do. So here's another, this is an email I can share. And again, I'll be emailing the slides. This is a nice one from a club on a reminder email when a golfer has not posted. It's a real good example for their first infraction. Golf club handicap committee would like to remind everyone to please post your score in the GIN system. You're expected to post your score on the day of play. If you do forget, you're able to post a previous round score. So a nice reminder in there of how to do things. You can post directly using the GIN app. It's important to keep your handicap up to date. Um, calculations to, then some more description. Calculation of the handicap index is designed to reflect the player's demonstrated ability. Uh, that kind of thing. Practice rounds are not to be posted according to the USGA practices rounds where a player is not trying his or her best to attain the lowest score or otherwise follow the rules of golf. Um, in addition, handicap committee will perform periodic random audits. So again, I won't read the whole letter, but I'll share the slides. This is a nice letter that the handicap committee chair shared with me. Patrick has a question. How should the committee handle failure to post for away scores? That's a challenge. That's a challenge I have if I'm doing a review on one of our tournament players we're curious about, and I see that they have a lot of away scores. Obviously, you can take the time to contact the club. I've contacted clubs before. I said, "Hey, is Mr. Jones on your tee sheet?" That can sometimes help with that, but sometimes it doesn't because Mr. Jones could have played with Mr. Thompson, the Browns were under Mr. Thompson's name. But that is a challenge for you as well. And in doing a handicap review is with golfers that have a lot of away scores. But you could also ask that golfer, "Hey, who did you play with? Who was there to that? You maybe not say we're concerned about that round, but who did you play with that day? Um, and can they verify your score?" So those are a couple ideas around that, but that's a challenger one for all of us. Um, I started to touch on what this one was earlier. A little more in-depth example of a penalty score club phase policy. So this is another one from one of our Carolinas clubs. I forget who it was myself, but that's okay. But they've got a pretty interesting set of ideas here for enforcing failure to post. First one, hey, no action. I'm not going to worry about it the first time. Second one, no penalty score, but we're going to let you know, hey, if you failure to post again, you're going to get a penalty score. Third time, penalty score equal to the lowest round in the last 20. And they have some notes here. Physical copy provided in the pro shop. Again, a reminder email. Hey, your next failure to post is going to be another penalty score. And then they do a handicap freeze for the remainder of the year. I'm not sure that I'm the biggest fan of that, but that's what they've chosen to do. A little bit of a penalty score and a handicap freeze at the low 12-month handicap for the remainder of the year. I think that is within club events themselves. I'm not sure if they do that to the handicap index or within the club events. Either way, but it's pretty strict penalty there. But for failure to post, I probably don't have a problem with that. And then again, letting the player know, hey, number 5, you're going to have the handicap freeze. Then you're not allowed to play in tournaments for 3 months just during the tournament season starting in March. And then finally, 6 times, we're going to go to the handicap committee for further review and further steps as need be. The final note that goes along with this particular club's policy, the failure to post reset at the beginning of the year. But highest offenders, hey, they're on where you're going to be watched going into next year. Once you have a good policy like this that's in place, you can, if you've got a culture problem at your club with failure to post, this kind of helps change that. Having a good policy gets your club members in a habit of posting scores. And I've talked about it in my handicap overview. Education on score posting beforehand can encourage golfers to make sure that they're posting scores. Hey, it's important to post your score, post on the day of play, post hole by hole. Kind of gets that culture going. Um, I'm kind of getting toward the end. I'm sure I got a few questions that'll come up. When it comes down to it, use common sense in your best judgment. Clubs can be different with different memberships, different membership styles. Um, all clubs kind of have the same different sorts of people who react to kind of the same way with this. So, yeah, use common sense in your best judgment. Everything I've talked about up here is all, from the rules of handicapping and the technical rules, the perfect world kind of thing. But when it comes down to it as a committee, use your common sense, use your best judgment of how you handle your membership when it comes to things. Um, that's kind of what my advice is there. It's working with membership and enforcing rules and issuing penalty scores can be challenging. Um, I will mention we'll come back to questions here in a second. I will mention my other handicap seminar topics I have coming up. My next one is handicap considerations in tournaments, handicap allowances. Um, at the end of March, I'm going to do my handicap reviews. That's one I've been looking forward to, and there's going to be there is an update that new club-wide, if anybody's been waiting for that new handicap review tool, it's going to be ready by the end of March to be able to review the entire roster. I'll do a talk on stroke index allocations. I'll try to do one here on preferred lies, root rules, and mulligans. Basically, some things that aren't even in the rules of handicapping. I'll have another one talking about holes of play when holes are closed, weather, poor conditions. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of failure to post. I'm here wide open for questions, and you can chat or unmute, whatever you'd like.
Hey, this is Dean Whitehill in Mooresville. I've got a question. We had a couple folks, we sent out a letter at the beginning of the year saying to all the members saying that we would be doing audits this year and a reminder to post all your scores. We had a couple people, one in particular I talked to who said he plays a lot of 9-hole rounds where he's hitting multiple balls and practice considers them practicing rounds. Like he gets there right after work, jumps out of the car, runs to to his tee time, and uh, he tries, like, he'll try cutting a corner on a dog leg or testing different shots, and he feels it wouldn't be accurate to. He feels that that's not an acceptable score, so he shouldn't post it. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, playing multiple shots, that's not the rules of golf, so that's really gonna invalidate a score. If he's
Right.
doing that on every hole or most holes. We'll mention I talked about software integration and T-sheet software. I do know that some T-sheet software golfers can say beforehand, hey, this is gonna be a practice round. I'm planning on practicing. I'm not gonna post the score. They can flag that score as practice. And so any reports that T sheet spits out will say, hey, this guy was practicing. He didn't post a score. But yeah, there has no need to post a score. But yeah, that golfer shouldn't post that score. Um, if he's always practicing and doing a lot much better in competitions than his handicap index represent, then that might lead to a handicap review. But yeah, if he's playing multiple shots, is he by himself or is he with other players?
Uh, I'm gonna say it's like half and half. As he I've played with him on some of those 9-hole rounds, and he um, it's pretty. He doesn't take a lot of practice shots, but he's trying different things, and like I said, he'll try, like, a knockdown shot or something into the wind that he normally doesn't do, and it ends up in the bunker. That inflates his handicap. So,
Yeah.
then that kind of stuff, I'm like, well, yeah, please don't post it. Um, it's but yeah, and he's being honest with me about it. He just wants to do it right, so
Yeah.
it
Okay.
doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Then you certainly playing by yourself, those scores can't be posted. Yeah, and if you're experimenting, trying things, then the rules of handicapping talking about trying your best on every shot.
Mhm.
If you're not really
Right,
trying, that's kind of gray area. You're using your common sense, not posting a score. You're
right,
proceeding correctly there, Dean.
right. Thank you.
Great.
I think you kind of mentioned it, Jim. We had one similar where a guy, he'd been hurt and he was playing a lot of practice rounds. And we said, well, before you play in this tournament, in March, you're going to have to post some real scores in order to play or something like that.
Yeah, that's yeah. If you're looking, if a golfer's coming back from a medical type issue and you're looking at doing a modification, you do kind of have to have a couple real scores in there to work with of what he's gonna be. So yeah, yeah, that's a good way to go on that. Again,
The
common
other,
sense.
we also do not allow practice rounds. That's in our policies. And so if you're going to take a second shot, we tell players you need to play the first ball, count the first ball. And if you want to try a second shot because you want to see if there's something different, then you can do that, but that one does not count. It's your first shot as you're playing. I recognize that players do go out on their own and that's a whole different process. You
Mhm.
can't post that, but whenever they're playing a round, we do not allow practice on the course. That's where the driving ranges are for. So just a
Sure.
different way to look at it.
Yeah, no, and again, you're using common sense. I mean, hitting a second shot, that's a that's a that's a penalty in the rules of golf. And so, but again, using common sense, you know, that doesn't count. Where you're playing a casual round, that score is okay for handicap purposes. Again, it's kind of a tough thing here is that I have the rules of handicapping, but then there's real world cases that people always do. I mean, who here hasn't taken a second shot just to see what happened? Yeah, very good.
And Jim, related to just watching people posting rounds, we just like Interclub, we're starting to use Golf Genius in all tournaments, and then we have some groups, including the one I'm playing on Tuesday, Thursday, where we're using Golf Genius for our groups. So that helps to eliminate sometimes where people might not have posted because it's posted for you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's one of the highlights of the tournament software is having those rounds posted back automatically. Yeah, yeah, very good thing.
But yeah, we're even doing it, yeah, every Tuesday and Thursday in our just general group. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Huh. That's very good. Yeah, because you have the posting on your phone kind of thing.
Well, we set it up. It doesn't hurt that 3 of the guys out of the 16 are interclub captains, so they know how to everybody knows how to use Golf Genius quite a
Oh,
bit.
right,
So.
sure. All right. Hey, that's very good. That's awesome. Anything else? And open to any topic as well, just not necessarily a failure to post. But again, yeah, it's a tricky one. I hope I've kind of hope everybody got something out of the discussion here today. And I'm always trying to gather in. I had mentioned a couple club policies and letters before. If anybody has anything policies like that they could share with me that I can kind of gather together for other clubs, please shoot me an email with those. I know my life's been handicapping. I know everything about that, but working on the club side is something I'm still learning and will always be learning as long as I'm doing this. So the more I can get back on how committees are working out there and what problems you have, I'm starting to pick up on quite a few. But anything if you want to share anything with me, I'd love it, and I can put that in my files for other clubs. That would be great. But yeah, very good. Thank you all for sitting in. Hope everybody got something out of this again. Got done a little sooner than I thought, but again, my email is jim.douglas, Douglas 2 S's at carolinasgolf.org. Our main line's 910-673-1000. Our member services department is 910-687-4040. That goes up to myself, Anna Catherine, and Kevin. You can email us at GASC, Golf Association Services of the Carolinas, at carolinasgolf.org. Go away phone. Our website's carolinasgolf.org. South Carolina members can go to scgolf.org, and women in South Carolina can go to WSCGA.org. And always great resources on the USGA.org. If you go to that website, click on playing and then handicapping home, and there's a plethora of details there. Again, yeah, thanks for your time. Good luck with failure to post. Hopefully you've got a good culture at your club on posting scores. Any thoughts on incorporating GIN numbers in T-sheet registration procedures? That's kind of good. Oh, I was going to ask you, I had a similar request, and I think it might have been yours of doing something like that. I've got a note on that, Ed. That is an interesting idea. Let me write that one down too. I guess again, I wish I knew more about T-sheet softwares, T-sheet software to know if things like that could be done. If your club uses 4Ts, can this be set up? 4Ts has been around for a long time. I would think they've got something like this. I don't know that for sure, but 4Ts has been around for quite some time. I would be surprised if they don't have something to help do some integration with scoring. Okay. Yeah, very good. Yeah, lots of these T-sheet softwares, a lot of them have been around for a long time. The Jonas, 4Ts, forget the other ones off the top of my head. Yeah. In fact, back in my GolfNet days, we were doing some, not as fancy as they do it now, but we were doing some integrations with the T-sheet software to get reports on who has and has not posted. I wrote a few of those reports back in my programming days. All right. I won't take up anybody else's time unless they have more questions. We have more questions out there. Again, appreciate y'all. Reach out anytime, or if something comes up to you. And like I said, I'll get the slides mailed out to you as soon as I can. PDF form. All right, very good. Thank you all for what you do. Thank you to the pros for all your time. I know you all are busy, and thank you for your handicap committee chairs for doing all the volunteer work to enforce the rules of handicapping and making handicapping a better place in the Carolinas. So that is much appreciated for me. You all take care.